Since 1997, Bill Belichick has two more Super Bowl rings than the Cowboys have playoff wins. That is why this is a discussion on the first place. But today, ESPN dropped a major report on Bill Belichick, and the Cowboys were brought up more than once and by more than one person. Let's dive in. What is up, everyone, and welcome to Primetime. I'm your host, Mauricio Rodriguez. ESPN published on Wednesday a large, deep dive look into Belichick's job hunt from earlier in the offseason. Now, for those of you who for some reason have been living under a rock and do not know the context, essentially, he was fired from the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick was. Technically and on paper, he mutually parted ways with the organization. We all know what that means, though, in the world of the NFL. And then after that, Belichick was supposed to go to the Atlanta Falcons. He was later blindsided by the teams, and I use blindsided because that's the word that Belichick's camp or friends seem to be using on this ESPN deep dive when the Falcons went for Raheem Morris as their next head coach. And now he is out of a head coaching job, and many people are wondering, when will he be back on the sidelines? Because he'll be on the Pat McAfee show breaking down the NFL draft when it's going down. He'll be doing some stuff with Omaha Productions. He will be busy, but he won't be coaching an NFL team in 2024. Could that change in 2025? That seems to be the big question for Bill Belichick. And just like with Sean Payton before him, you just know that the Cowboys are going to be right in that conversation. Why? Because Mike McCarthy is on a contract year. It's been over 2 decades, almost 3 decades now, since the Cowboys have made an NFC championship game. And at the very least, you have to have the discussion about the man who has won 8 Super Bowls in one way or another and 6 Super Bowls as head coach. You at least got to have that conversation. Now, this was an interesting report because there were a lot of reasons, there were a lot of instances where the Cowboys were brought up, and perhaps the most noteworthy one and the most telling one was this quote from a longtime friend of Bill Belichick. And the quote reads, "I don't think Bill Belichick will ever be a head coach again in the National Football League." Keep in mind, this is a long-time friend of Belichick. And then he adds, "unless it is for Jerry Jones." Boom. I don't have a bomb sound effect, but I would play it right now if I did. Unless it is for Jerry Jones. Now, throughout the article, it is explained that Belichick seems to believe that he will get interviews in 2025, and he seems to believe that the Cowboys are a fit. Now, for a long time, we've had this idea that Belichick wouldn't fit with the Cowboys. Before I dive deeper into this, let me ask you in the chat, and I'll be looking at the comments later on and replying to as many as I can. But would you like or dislike Bill Belichick coaching the Dallas Cowboys? Do you think he would be a fit in the first place? Because I think the first thing that comes to mind is, holy smokes, Belichick's no BS mindset mixed with the Cowboys' circus type approach to things. And I don't even mean circus in a negative way right now. Just it's much more about football. And with Belichick, it's all about football and nothing else. But the Cowboys have all of these things going on at the same time. And they're all about the brand and they're all about the show business of it all. In the words of Dalton Schultz, they're like a zoo. And I'm obviously making fun of Dalton Schultz there a little bit. Don't worry. We're not going to get into that controversy again. We're not going to go back to that conversation. But you know exactly what I mean when I bring this to the table. Now, I don't think that is the major issue with a potential pairing between the Cowboys and the Belichick. For a long time, I felt like this is the real issue. This is the big obstacle. Could Belichick clear that hurdle of control? Who has the control of the franchise? When he was the coach of the New England Patriots, it was all about him. He was the general manager. He was the coach. He called the shots, for better or worse. He was the one who thought Tom Brady didn't have it in him anymore. And That's one of his major blemishes, by the way, in his resume for sure. He thought Brady was done for. He thought it was best to move on without number 12. Number 12 went out there and won his Super Bowl with him. And since then, he's 29 and 39 without Brady after that era. Now, I think that the Cowboys would never give up the control of who they are drafting. And between you and I think they shouldn't, because they've done a tremendous job at it with Will McClay, who is basically the draft GM of the Cowboys. Let's call it that. He's the one who calls the shots on draft day. And we've seen that with our own eyes, right? We've seen Stephen and Jerry talk about potentially going for Matthew Bergeron, and Will McClay basically overruling them and being like, it's going to be Maciej Smith, right? So I don't think the Cowboys would give up that control. I don't think Stephen Jones would give up the free agency control either. And I'm not saying that Belichick is awesome in free agency, but you just know that they're not going to see eye to eye, because Stephen Jones, we all know, is stubborn with the way that he does things. He's set in his ways, and nobody's going to change his mind. So would that work? I think that's the real question here. And I think that Belichick might have removed that problem, that obstacle. Now, parenthesis, I'm not arguing for the Cowboys to go ahead and hire Bill Belichick in 2025, but this is important, I think. He seems to have removed that obstacle, because according to ESPN, when he was talking to the Falcons, he assured, and I quote, Falcons owner Arthur Blank, that he wasn't seeking the total control he had for most of his 24 seasons in New England. He pledged to work with the team's existing group of decision makers, and that's including general manager Terry Fontenot. If Belichick has that mindset with every team that he talks to next year or the year after that or the year after that, then Belichick and the Cowboys start making at least a little bit of sense. Now, don't get it twisted. There's so many other factors that would go into it. Specifically, who are you in 2025 as a head coach without Tom Brady? Who are you in terms of how you're going to build the coaching staff? Is it going to be your buddies once again? Is it going to be Josh McDaniels? Or are you going to try to inject some of that Kyle Shanahan coaching tree into your staff? Would you be open to the franchise deciding a part of the coaching staff? What exactly would that look like? And I think that there's a lot of factors, again, that go into it that might want you not to go for Bill Belichick. And I'll look at your comments later on the show. But this is the major obstacle that I see in the way. And if Belichick is willing to clear that, then I got to say, I think that this carries more weight than the Sean Payton discourse that we've dealt with for years before he became a head coach of the Denver Broncos. I think this whole storyline carries much more weight and it's much more viable. Now, here's one thought, though, on the whole thing about him giving up control. I think he would. And I think this is specifically because of one thing. When he was fired from the New England Patriots, what was our way of viewing things? Just like as a general fan base in the world of the NFL. There's going to be teams lining up for him. There's going to be multiple teams raising their hands and being like, hey, Belichick, we want you. That did not turn out to be the case. Basically, it was a Falcons or bust for Bill Belichick. And according to ESPN, the decision makers, or the most important people in the organization of the Falcons, they all left Belichick out of their top 3 head coaching options. They were asked basically for a ballot, and nobody had Belichick in their top 3, which was why the Falcons went in a different direction. So in other words, Belichick is not looking at every NFL team and trying to pick and choose where he's going to. He's hoping for somebody to be interested in him, which is crazy to think about one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. But this is where we're at. And man, I'm just saying, long term, this could be viable. I could see this happening for the Cowboys. Would I like it? Maybe not. Mainly because I would like the Cowboys to go get somebody with younger blood if they do decide to leave the Mike McCarthy path after the 2024 NFL season. But ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for us tonight here on the show. On Thursday, we'll be back live, and we'll be doing a 7-round mock draft. We're going to have some fun. So make sure you tune in 8 p.m. Central We're going to have some guests. See you tomorrow night. Bye-bye.